My name is Jolene Sims, and at 36, I learned something no daughter should ever learn. My family had not been loving me. They had been billing me. The night I lost the biggest contract of my career, my sister did not ask if I was okay. She did not ask if I had eaten. She looked up from her phone and asked one question: "So who's paying my car now?" My mother nodded like that was the tragedy. My father walked into my old bedroom with a cardboard box and started folding my shirts into it, quiet and careful, like he was packing away a problem. Then he told me my sister needed the house more than I did. They had no idea I owned a life they had never bothered to ask about. They had no idea whose name was on a deed 3 hours down the coast. And they had no idea the daughter they were throwing out had already bought back the one house this family lost decades ago. I run Tideline Property Restoration in Mara Bay. We restore coastal homes the ocean has tried to destroy. Rotted joists, storm-twisted porches, salt-eaten siding, foundations loosened by weather. I started with one truck, a borrowed nail gun, and a stubborn refusal to stay broke. Over time, I built a company with crews, clients, contracts, and my name on a sign outside a converted boathouse. My family called it construction. Close enough, I used to tell myself. That Friday morning, my biggest client called and told me his investor had pulled out. The resort restoration was gone. A quarter of my year's revenue vanished in one phone call. I stared at the numbers and waited for panic. It didn't come. I had rebuilt houses the sea had swallowed whole. I could rebuild a quarter. What hurt was knowing I had nobody to tell. Not because I had no family. Because my family had never asked who I was when I was not useful. That afternoon, I made the drive I had made every Friday for 18 months. 3 hours inland to Mill Haven, to the house where I had grown up and where I had been sleeping in my old bedroom since Dad's heart attack. When he collapsed in the driveway, I left a job site, drove without stopping, and stayed because somebody had to hold the house together. In my family, somebody always meant me. I kept my company alive on the coast and my obligation alive in Mill Haven, driving that highway until it felt stitched through my chest. Every weekend, I paid bills, fixed leaks, handled insurance, checked on Dad, checked on Nana, and pretended I was fine. When I pulled into the driveway, Dell's truck and Cody's rusted Charger were at the curb. Company on a Friday meant one thing in my family. A decision had already been made about me, and I would be the last to hear it. The screen door slapped shut behind me. Before I cleared the hallway, Brittany's voice hit me. "So it's true. You got fired." She was curled in the couch corner with her phone. Cody sat beside her, smirking. My mother, Carol, sat in the armchair with her hands folded in her lap. Dell stood near the kitchen doorway, quiet, watching me like he wanted to warn me and did not know how. "Laid off," I said. "The client went under. Nobody fired me." Brittany did not care about the difference. She turned to my mother as if I were not standing there. "Mom, who's going to pay my car now?" There it was. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Not, "Do you need anything?" Just a bill with my name already written on it. My mother set her tea down and gave me the smile she used when she wanted obedience to look like kindness. "Now, Jolene, don't get worked up. We'll sort it out. You always sort it out." I looked around the room. They had known for hours us. Cody's cousin worked at the supply house, and word had traveled before I did. They had discussed the worst day of my career and decided the real emergency was Brittany's car payment. "I drove 3 hours," I said, "to find out my own family held a meeting about my paycheck." Mom sighed, like my pain was bad manners. "Sit down, honey. You're tired." I did not sit. That was when my father came in from the hallway carrying a flat box. He set it on the coffee table and popped it open. "Your sister and Cody need a real room," he said. "They're talking about getting married. It makes sense for them to have yours." For a second, I thought I had heard him wrong. Then Mom said the line she had clearly rehearsed. "Your sister needs this house more than you do, Jolene." She said it softly. That made it worse. Cruelty is one thing. Cruelty dressed up as concern is something else. Brittany did not even look up. Dad walked into my bedroom, and I followed him. I watched him fold my work shirts into that box. The same hands that taught me to swing a hammer were now packing me out of the house I had kept from sinking. "You're really doing this?" I asked. From the living room, Mom called, "You've always landed on your feet." There it was again. The family motto, Jolene lands on her feet, so nobody has to catch her. Jolene is strong, so nobody has to ask if she is tired. Jolene can handle it, so everybody else can keep taking. I looked at the box. Nana's old sewing tin sat on top. She had given it to me when I was 12, back when someone in that house still noticed what I carried. I picked it up and held it close. Then my fingers brushed the key ring in my jacket pocket. Cold metal. Quiet truth. A secret I had kept from everyone in that house. A key to a place they did not know existed. I did not explain it. Not then. "You're not throwing me out," I said. "I'm choosing the door." Dad finally looked at me. Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe. Shame, maybe. But before it could become anything useful, my mother called, "Don't be dramatic." And he went back to folding, so I picked up the box myself. Nobody stopped me. Nobody apologized. Nobody asked where I would sleep. I walked out before anyone could open the door for me, and I shut it behind me on my own. I drove back to the coast that same night. 3 hours in the dark, the box rattling on the back seat like a cheap little coffin for the version of me who still thought being useful would someday make them love me. I did not cry. I was too busy doing math. By the time the road turned to salt air and the lights of Mara Bay rose over the dunes, I had already decided what would stop by midnight. The property tax auto-pay, the homeowner's insurance gap, the quiet transfers, Brittany's car payment, all the invisible beams I had been holding in place. My apartment was above a bait shop 2 blocks from the waters. My office sat in the converted boathouse with Tideline on the sign. This was my real life. My family had never visited it, never asked about it, never cared unless money flowed from it back toward them. Renata Vance, my business partner, was still at the office at 10 p.m. She saw the box in my arms and set down her coffee. "You finally left that house," she said. "They left me," I answered. "I just stopped arguing about it." Renata had watched me wire money home, cover bills, drive that highway every weekend, and come back emptier each time. She had told me for a year that love was not supposed to feel like payroll. "Good," she said. "Now what are you going to do about it?" I set the box on my desk. Under Nana's sewing tin was the folder I had carried back and forth for years, like a secret with sharp edges. Renata saw me look at it. "Is it time?" she asked. I did not answer right away. Inside that folder was a deed. My deed. 3 years old. A small beach house 40 minutes up the coast. Not just any beach house. The house my grandmother had lost decades ago. The house my mother did not recognize anymore. The house she was going to try to rent very soon without knowing she was renting it from me. Let me tell you why that folder mattered. 18 months before my father packed my shirts into a cardboard box, he collapsed in the driveway with a heart attack. I got the call while standing on a job site with a measuring tape in one hand and a crew waiting on my answer. I dropped everything and drove 3 hours inland without stopping. I told myself I would stay for a week. Then a week became a month. Then a month became 18 months of sleeping in my old room, paying bills nobody mentioned, fixing problems nobody thanked me for, and driving back to the coast every Monday morning like I had left part of my spine behind in Mill Haven. Somebody had to manage the house while Dad recovered. In my family, somebody always meant me. Mom did not work. Brittany drifted between jobs she quit before they could fire her. Cody had a new business idea every time someone else had money. Dad was tired and quiet. Nana was old and getting smaller every season. So I became the one who noticed everything. The property taxes were behind. I caught them up. The homeowner's insurance had a gap. I covered it. The water heater coughed. I fixed it. The porch steps sagged. I repaired them. When Brittany wanted a newer car and her credit could not carry a paper bag, Mom handed me a pen and said, "Just cosign." She's trying, Jolene. I knew better. But I also knew if that loan defaulted, it would hit my credit, and my credit was tied to my company, so I signed with one condition. 6 months, I said. After that, Brittany pays her own car. Mom smiled like I had said something cute. Of course, honey. She just needs help getting on her feet. Brittany never got on her feet because nobody ever let her hit the ground, and I was the strong one. That was the story they loved best. Jolene is strong. Jolene can handle it. Jolene always lands on her feet. It sounds like praise until you realize it is just permission to ignore someone's pain. People ask why I kept doing it. The truth is ugly because it is simple. I thought if I held the house up long enough, someday they would look at me and see more than the wall. They never did. Only Nana did. Nana Marlene lived in the back room of the Millhaven house, near the window where the afternoon light came in. She was almost 80, with thin hands, sharp eyes, and immense memory that sometimes wandered but always found me. When I was little, she used to pull me close and say, "You were never the strong one to me, baby. You were just the only one who showed up." That sentence saved me more times than she knew. She had once owned a little house by the water with my grandfather. She talked about it like some people talk about heaven. A white porch, salt airs, evening light. A place where, for a few years, she had felt safe. Then the bad years came, money disappeared, and the house was lost. After that, something in her folded. I think part of me kept driving back to Millhaven for her. Not for my mother. Not for Brittany. For the old woman in the back room who remembered I was a person before I was a solution. That night, after they boxed me out, I sat at my kitchen table in Mara Bay with cold coffee and my laptop open. I did not scream. I did not write a long message. I did not beg anyone to understand. I started removing myself from the machinery. First, the Millhaven property tax autopay. Cancelled, then the homeowner's insurance gap. Cancelled, then Brittany's car payment. I stared at that screen longer than the others, because co-signing meant her damage could still bruise my credit. I knew that. I knew she would not refinance. I knew she would probably miss the payments and blame me for the consequences. But I also knew something else. A bruise heals. A lifetime of being used does not, unless you stop letting them call it love. So I canceled that autopay too. Then I made a list of every quiet thing I covered. Bills, repairs, emergency transfers, small rescues, dressed up as family. One by one, I drew a line through them. By midnight, the invisible house I had been holding up began to lose its beams. They just did not know it yet. I opened the folder on the table. Inside was the deed to the beach house. 3 years earlier, Nana's lost cottage had appeared at a county auction. It was half ruined. The porch sagged toward the sand. The siding had been chewed by salt and neglect. Most people saw a teardown. I saw a promise. I emptied savings I had no business emptying, signed papers with shaking hands, and bought it under my own name. I told no one, not Mom, not Dad, not Brittany, not even Nana. I told myself I would restore it first. Then I would show her. But restoration takes time, so does courage. For 3 years, I worked on that house in secret. Weekend by weekend. Board by board. While my family thought I was working construction, I was rebuilding the only place Nana had ever called hers. Now, after they threw me out, that secret no longer felt like a gift waiting for the right moment. It felt like the truth sharpening itself. For 2 days, Millhaven stayed silent. No call from Mom, no apology from Dad. Brittany posted a picture of my old bedroom with a caption that said, "Finally getting space." I looked at it once, then put my phone face down. At work, Renata and I chased smaller contracts to cover the resort loss. A storm-damaged duplex. A widow's porch leaning one hard wind away from collapse. Honest work. Work that paid. Work that did not ask me to bleed and call it loyalty. On the third morning, Dell called. Dell is my cousin, and in that family he is dangerous for one reason. He tells the truth before anyone has approved it. Jolene, he said, voice low. You need to know something. I set down my coffee. What happened? A bank letter came to the house. Your mom's been staring at it all morning. What kind of bank letter? Something about a home equity line. The room around me went quiet. What home equity line? Del paused. That pause told me everything before he said another word. You don't know about it? He asked. My hand tightened around the phone. Del, what home equity line? I thought maybe you set it up, he said. Your name is mixed up in it somehow. Your mom said your name. For a second, I could not move. Not because I was shocked they had used me, because I was terrified of how far they might have gone before I could process it. Brittany called. Some stupid old reflex made me answer. Some last soft piece of me still hoped she might ask how I was. She did not. Hey, she said. My insurance is due Monday. Can you cover it? And Mom says the water heater is making a noise, so probably that too. No hello, no shame, no question that did not end in a dollar amount. Brittany, I said, do you know where I am right now? I don't know. The beach somewhere? I am 3 hours away, and I am off your payroll. Silence. Then Cody's voice mumbled in the background. Brittany came back colder. Don't be like that. You always handle this stuff. I handled it because nobody else would. That does not make it mine. So you're just going to let my car get repossessed over your feelings? I am not your bank, Brittany. I was never supposed to be. That was when Cody's voice got louder. Ask her about the other thing. Brittany hissed at him to shut up, but I had already heard it. The other thing? I asked. Nothing, she said quickly. Forget it. Then she hung up. I sat there staring at the phone, and the pieces began moving in my head. A bank letter, a home equity line, my name. Cody saying the other thing. That family had not just been leaning on me. They had built something on top of me without even telling me I was under it. That night, I sent a message to Mom, Dad, and Brittany. Not emotional. Not angry. Not long. Just clean the taxes, insurance help, and car payments stop now. Brittany is responsible for her own loan. Contact the bank directly for anything else. I almost added one more line. Family is not a bill. It is a door. I am done holding it open for people who only knock when they want something. I did not send that part. I just needed to read it to myself once, and know I meant it. The storm came by noon the next day. Mom called 6 times before I answered. When I picked up, she did not start with the bills. She started with the wound she knew best. After everything this family has done for you, she said, this is who you've become? What has this family done for me, Mom? Silence. There was no list. There had never been a list. You've always landed on your feet, Jolene. You don't need us the way your sister does. I am not doing anything to Brittany, I said. I stopped doing things for her. That is not the same. She could lose her car. Then she can make her payments like an adult. Her voice cracked right on schedule. I lost 2 babies before your sister. You don't understand what it is to almost lose a child. There it was, a real grief, sharpened into a weapon. I do understand, I said quietly. I have understood my whole life. That is why I drove that highway for 18 months. But grief is not a debt I owe forever. For once, she had no answer. Then she found a new knife. We will just figure out your grandmother's birthday without you. Nana's 80th, that was when everything inside me went still, because Mom had just turned Nana's birthday into a punishment, and she had no idea I was already holding the one gift that would expose everyone. 2 days later, I drove back to Millhaven, but not for my mother. I parked around the side and entered through the door near Nana's room so I would not have to pass through the living room. Nana sat in her recliner by the window, quilt over her knees, smaller than before but still bright when she saw me. There's my girl, she said. I sat beside her and held her hand. We talked about the birds at her feeder, the neighbors, the ache in her knees. Then she looked out at the gray sky and said, 80 years. Can you believe that? What do you want for your birthday? I asked. She smiled. But it was the kind of smile that sadness folded inside it. I had one good house in my life, she said. Out on the water. Your grandfather and I bought it the year we married. We lost it when the bad years came. Her thumb moved over my knuckles. The sea took everything else from me, but not that porch. I used to sit there at sunset and think, this is mine. Nobody can take this. My throat tightened. She looked at me, eyes wet but steady. Funny what a person remembers at the end. I did not tell her I had bought that house back. Not yet. I just held her hand until the light changed, and on the drive back to the coast, I called my attorney because the secret in my folder was no longer enough. I did not just want Nana to see that porch again. I wanted to make sure nobody in my family could ever take it from her twice. The house Nana lost was not just a house, it was the one place in our family that had ever sounded like peace. I knew because she had told me the same memory in pieces for years. The white porch. The sound of gulls. My grandfather bringing coffee outside before sunrise. Nana sitting there at night with her feet tucked under her, watching the sun disappear into the water like the whole world was finally quiet enough to let her breathe. Then money got tight. Work dried up. Bills stacked. The house was lost. Nobody talked about it much after that. In our family, pain was either buried or turned into a weapon. Nana buried hers. My mother sharpened hers. 3 years before that birthday, I saw the cottage listed in a county auction notice by accident. The address hit me like a hand on the chest. I knew it before I saw the photographs. It was Nana's house. Or what was left of it. The porch sagged toward the sand. The paint had peeled in long strips. Salt had eaten into the siding. One window was boarded. The roof needed work. Anyone sensible would have seen a liability. I saw Nana's porch. I emptied savings I should have protected. I signed papers with hands that would not stop shaking. I bought it under my name and told nobody. Not because I wanted a secret. Because I wanted a miracle to be finished before I showed it to the person who deserved it. So while my family thought I was just working construction, I was driving to that coast house and bringing it back from the dead. I replaced boards, reframed weak walls, pulled rot out like infection, sanded railings until my hands ached, painted in the heat, worked past dark, paid for materials one painful invoice at a time. Every time I wanted to quit, I pictured Nana sitting on that porch again. That was enough, but after she told me what she wanted for her 80th, I knew seeing the house was not enough anymore. I called my attorney from the truck before I even reached Mara Bay. I need a life estate, I said. My attorney went quiet for a beat. For who? My grandmother. I own the house, but I want her to have the legal right to live there for the rest of her life. No rent, no conditions, no one can push her out. She walked me through it. The document would be clean. The ownership would stay mine, but Nana's right to live there would be protected until she was gone. That mattered, because love without paperwork is easy for selfish people to challenge. I had learned that the hard way. The next day, I went to the cottage to finish a wall beside the old chimney. It was original plaster, sealed for decades, the kind nobody opens unless they are going down to the bones. I was prying loose a section when something dropped from inside the wall and hit the subfloor with a hollow metal sound, a coffee tin, old. Rusted at the seams. Hidden there like a secret, waiting for someone stubborn enough to find it. I sat on the floor and pried it open. Inside were photographs, curled and yellow with age. Nana, young, laughing in the sun. My grandfather beside her with one arm around her. The porch behind them, new and bright, before loss had touched it. Under the photographs was a folded piece of paper. Nana's handwriting, things I want before I go. My breath stopped. Most of the list was small enough to break my heart. See the cousins once more. Make peace with Wayne. Eat lemon cake by the water. And at the top, underlined twice so hard the pen had nearly torn the paper. Watch one more sunset from the porch of a house that's mine. I sat there on that unfinished floor until the room went orange with evening light. For years, Nana's wish had been sealed inside the wall of the very house she lost. It had survived foreclosure, strangers, storms, and rot. It had waited in the dark while the whole family forgot what she had been grieving. And I had found it just in time. That was when the birthday stopped being a party. It became a reckoning. I started planning that night. Chairs on the lawn. String lights under the eaves. Lemon cake because Nana loved lemon. Photographs on the mantel. The coffee tin where she could see it. A carved cedar sign for the porch. Marlene's porch. I made it myself, sanding each letter until my fingers cramped. Renata watched me work and shook her head. You know your mother is going to turn this into a performance. I'm counting on it, I said. She looked at me for a long second. That is either terrifying or brilliant. It can be both. Then the universe handed me something I could not have planned better. A booking inquiry came through the Tideline event page. When the cottage was empty, I sometimes rented it for small events to help cover restoration costs. The listing did not show my name, only the company. Most people booked it for anniversaries, family dinners, small coastal ceremonies. This inquiry was for an 80th birthday party, from Carol Sims. My mother. I stared at the screen, then I read it again. Carol Sims wanted to rent my beach cottage for Nana's birthday. The same cottage Nana had lost. The same cottage I had bought back. The same cottage my mother did not recognize because I had restored it so completely. She thought she had found a beautiful venue. She had found me. Renata leaned over my shoulder and let out a slow whistle. She's trying to rent your house, she said, for the party you were already planning. In the house her mother lost, I said, without knowing I own it. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. There are moments in life so perfect they feel less like luck, and more like the truth finally getting tired of being quiet. I could have exposed it immediately. I could have sent one message, Mom, you cannot rent what I own, but that would have been too small. My mother had boxed me out in front of people. She had let a room full of family watch my humiliation and called it practicality. She had used public shame like furniture, arrange everyone around it until I had nowhere to sit. So I decided truth deserved the same audience. Reply from the company account, I told Renata. Tell her the cottage is available. Renata stared at me. You are really going to let her book it? I am going to let her walk in, thinking she arranged something beautiful, I said. Then I am going to tell everyone who really brought that house back. My mother paid the deposit without asking a single question about ownership. That was her gift and her curse. She never asked who held things up. She only cared that they stayed held. While the party plans moved forward, the bank problem came alive. Del called again, and this time his voice sounded tight. I found out what the letter was about, he said. Jolene, it's bad. I sat down before he continued. 2 years earlier, my mother had opened a home equity line against the Mill Haven house. At first, Del thought maybe I knew. Maybe I had helped. Maybe it was one of the many adult things I handled quietly. I had not. The money had gone toward Brittany, toward Cody's truck, toward one of his business ideas, toward wedding talk they could not afford, toward keeping the fantasy alive that Brittany was building a life instead of being financed by mine. Because my mother's credit was weak, she had used the strongest name connected to the household, mine. Copies from the car cosign, my social security number, my income details, an old signature. She had forged me onto the application. I never saw it. I never signed it. But on paper, I was listed as a borrower. The line was delinquent. The house was collateral. My name was attached to a debt I had never agreed to carry. For a moment, I just listened to myself breathe. The strangest part was not that my mother had used me. It was realizing she had used me so completely that even my signature had become something she thought she owned. I called my attorney. This time, I did not ask what would keep the peace. I asked what would make the truth official. We pulled the loan documents. We compared the signature to mine. The forgery was obvious. We checked dates and records, matched them against where I had been, gathered what we could, and filed everything. Fraud dispute, identity theft affidavit, police report. My attorney warned me. This will take time. The bank has to investigate. Nothing is instant. But if the forgery holds, you come off the debt, and the bank goes after whoever actually created it. Whoever. We both knew whose name belonged under that word. For one long second, I saw my mother in my head. Crying. Saying she did it for family. Saying I was cruel. Saying I had always landed on my feet a year earlier. That image would have made me fold. Not this time. File it, I said. There is a strange kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. I was not screaming. I was not shaking. I was not plotting revenge in the way people imagine revenge. I was simply putting names back where they belonged, mine on what I built, hers on what she stole. As the fraud letters began landing in Mill Haven, the house started reacting like a roof after the support beam is removed. Brittany's car went first. A tow truck came on a Tuesday afternoon and took her SUV from the driveway while she shouted in a robe at a man with a clipboard. 2 months behind, no invisible sister quietly covering it, no emergency rescue, no Jolene-shaped safety net. Then the lender started asking questions about the home equity line, questions my mother could not answer. Why did the signatures not match? Why had I never received statements at my actual address? Why had the application used documents connected to another loan? Why was I now filing identity theft? My mother called Dell crying, "Look what Jolene did to us." Dell, bless him, said the one sentence that probably felt like betrayal because it was true. Aunt Carol, Jolene didn't take out that loan. She hung up on him. Cody began disappearing. Funny how fast love gets busy when the money dries up. The wedding talk faded. Brittany, suddenly without a car, had to ride with Mom everywhere again, angry and humiliated. From 3 hours away, I watched it all settle. Not with joy, with clarity. I had not destroyed the house. I had only stopped pretending I was its foundation. Then my father called. Dad never called unless Mom told him to. So when his name lit my screen, I almost let it ring, but I answered. "Jolene," he said, then nothing. I waited. I had spent my whole life filling silence for that man. Not anymore. Finally he said, "That night. The box. I shouldn't have packed your things." It was one sentence. Small, late, not enough. But true, so I let it stand. Mom said it was best for everyone, he continued. I went along. I always go along. That's the thing about me, I guess. It is the thing about you, Dad, I said, not cruelly. Just honestly. He breathed out like the truth had weight. There's a letter about the house. About the loan. Your mother won't tell me what's in it. Ask her. It's her loan. She says your name is on it. It is, I said. She put it there without asking me. The line went so quiet I could hear the ocean outside my office window. I didn't know, he said. I believe you, I answered. You never know anything in that house. You make sure of it. That hurt him. I could hear it. But I did not take it back. Some truths arrive late because everyone was too polite to open the door. Are you coming to your grandmother's birthday? He asked. I'm coming, I said. More than you know. I hung up and looked out at the water. For the first time, I wondered if my father might actually stand up when the moment came. I did not count on it, but I left a small space in my heart for the possibility. The week before the party, I lived at the cottage. I painted trim, washed windows, checked the porch rail, hung lights, confirmed the caterer, picked up the lemon cake order, and placed Nana's photographs on the mantel beside the coffee. Estate das tin. The life estate documents were ready. The sign was hanging by the door, covered with cloth. The house looked nothing like the ruin from the auction photos. It looked loved back to life. The night before the party, I stood on the porch and watched the sun sink over the water. This was the sunset Nana had asked for. This was the porch my mother was going to take credit for. This was the truth, waiting with lights strung under the eaves, and tomorrow, everyone would walk straight into it. The morning of Nana's birthday, I woke before sunrise inside the cottage. For a moment, I just lay there listening to the tide. No shouting from the living room, no phone buzzing with someone else's emergency, no mother turning bills into guilt, no sister waiting to be rescued. Just the water moving in and out like it had all the time in the world. On the nightstand beside me was the folder with the life estate. On the mantel were Nana's old photographs and the rusted coffee tin. Outside, the porch waited under strings of lights, freshly painted, steady beneath a sky, turning pale blue. By sunset, Nana would know the house was hers to live in. By sunset, my mother would know the venue she had bragged about renting belonged to the daughter she had thrown out. And by sunset, everyone would know what my family had built on my back. My phone rang at 8:17. Mom. I watched it buzz until it nearly stopped, then answered. She did not say good morning. The bank is threatening to take the house, she said. There was no softness in her voice now. No performance. Just panic wearing anger's clothes. They say the loan is in default. They say you filed some kind of fraud claim. You have to fix this, Jolene. I did not take out that loan, Mom. A pause, then quieter. I did it for your sister. There it was. Not denial, not confusion, not even shame, just an explanation she thought was good enough. For your sister, I repeated. For the family, she snapped, gaining strength. Brittany needed help. Cody was trying to start something real. We were going to pay it back before it became a problem. You used my name. You had the credit. You forged my signature. You always make everything sound ugly. It was ugly before I named it. She went silent. I could almost see her in the Millhaven kitchen, hand pressed to her forehead, bills spread across the table, finally looking at numbers I had been quietly protecting her from for years. Then she tried the old door. We could lose the house, Jolene. You told me Brittany needed that house more than I did, I said. So I left it to her. That is cruel. No. Cruel was packing my shirts while I was still standing there. Her breath caught, but she recovered fast. My mother never stayed wounded when she could become offended. You have always landed on your feet, she said. You can take this, we cannot. I looked around the cottage, at the walls I had rebuilt, at the porch I had saved, at the photographs of Nana, young and happy in a life the family had forgotten. I did land on my feet, I said. I will see you at the party. At least you are showing up for your grandmother, she said, because even cornered, she knew where to place the knife. I hung up. For once, it did not cut. I spent the next hours making sure everything was ready. The caterers arrived first and set white tables on the lawn that sloped toward the dunes. Renata checked the lights, then the cake, then me. You are too calm, she said. I am exactly calm enough. That is what scares me. I smiled a little. Good. She looked toward the driveway. They could make this ugly. They already made it ugly, I said. I am just making it honest. Inside, I placed the coffee tin on the mantel and opened it so the photographs showed. Nana and Grandpa on the porch. Nana laughing with her hand over her eyes. Grandpa leaning against the rail, young and proud, beside the tin. I placed the folded list, things I want before I go. I did not unfold it yet. That was for Nana. The life estate documents stayed in my folder. Signed. Witnessed. Ready. The carved sign by the door stayed covered with cloth. Marlene's porch. 2 words that had taken me 3 years to earn. Around 4, the first cars started arriving. Gravel cracked under tires. Doors slammed. Laughter carried across the lawn. Cousins stepped out in bright clothes, carrying gift bags and covered dishes, looking around with the pleased surprise people get when they think someone else has spent money well. Aunt Rotha was first to say it. Carol outdid herself. I heard it from the porch and almost laughed. Then Cody's Charger pulled in. Brittany stepped out wearing sunglasses too large for her face, walking like she had not spent the week without a car of her own. Cody came around the other side, scanning the property the way a man scans something he cannot afford, but still judges. My mother arrived in her good dress. She stepped out smiling, not a real smile. A hostess smile. The kind she wore when people were watching, and she needed them to see the version of herself she liked best. She looked at the cottage, the lawn, the tables, the ocean, and satisfaction spread across her face. She thought this was hers. Not legally, not literally, but socially. She thought she had arranged beauty. She thought she had bought admiration. She thought this party would make everyone forget the whispers about the bank letters, the car, the tension in Mill Haven. Then my father pulled in. He got out slowly. He did not look at the food or the tables first. He looked at the house. Something changed in his face. Recognition. He had been a boy on this porch once. He had visited his parents here. He had known this house before it fell out of the family and into memory. His eyes moved from the white rail to the clean windows to the old chimney. Then he saw me standing near the steps. I did not speak. He swallowed. For 1 second, I think he understood everything. Then they brought Nana. She was in a borrowed wheelchair, wrapped in a pale shawl, even though the day was warm. Dell pushed her carefully up the gravel path while she looked around, confused but smiling at all the voices calling happy birthday. Then the cottage came fully into view. Nana went still. Not quiet, not surprised. Still. The kind of stillness that happens when the past walks into the room wearing new paint. Her hand lifted slowly to her mouth. "Wayne," she whispered. My father stepped closer. "Wayne," she said again, but her eyes never left the porch. "This is..." She could not finish. The cousins were still laughing behind her. Somebody opened a cooler. A child ran across the lawn. Plates clattered near the food table. But around Nana, the world narrowed to that porch. The white rail, the chimney, the angle of the windows, the place where the steps met the sand. Her voice broke. "This is my house." My father closed his eyes. My mother heard it and hurried forward, already adjusting the moment into something she could control. "Isn't it lovely, Mama?" she called, loud enough for everyone. "I found it for you. I wanted you to have somewhere beautiful for your birthday." Nana did not answer. She was staring at the covered sign by the door. I walked up the steps, took the cloth in my hand, and pulled it away. Marlene's porch. The cedar letters caught the light. Nana made a sound so small I almost missed it. "Oh." Her hand trembled against her mouth. "Who did this?" she whispered. "Who brought my house back?" My mother's smile faltered. Only for a second. Then she did what she always did when the truth got too close. She stepped in front of it. "Well," she said, turning toward the guests, "I wanted Mama's 80th to be special." Her voice rose. The hostess voice. The performance voice. Everyone turned toward her. "I searched everywhere for the perfect place," she continued. "Somewhere elegant. Somewhere meaningful. Somewhere by the water. It was not easy, let me tell you. But nothing is too good for my mother." A few cousins clapped. Brittany smiled like the applause belonged partly to her. Aunt Rotha nodded approvingly. My mother glowed. She was standing in the middle of the lawn, taking credit for a house she had not recognized, a porch she had not rebuilt, a birthday gift she had accidentally rented from the daughter she had humiliated. I let her speak. I let her gather the room. I let the story become as big as she wanted it to be, because the bigger she made the lie, the louder the truth would sound when it landed. Renata caught my eye from near the catering table. She gave me one small nod. Dell stood behind Nana's chair, jaw tight, waiting. My father looked at me, and for once, he did not look away. My mother opened her arms like she was receiving the whole family's admiration. "I just wanted this place to feel like family," she said. That was when I stepped down from the porch and walked into the middle of the lawn, not fast, not angry, just steady. "Mom," I said. She turned, still smiling. "You did not rent this house." The applause died first, then the conversations, then even the kids seemed to feel the air change. My mother's smile froze. "What are you talking about?" "You paid a deposit," I said. "To Tideline." "Yes," she snapped, already embarrassed. "The company. The rental company." Tideline is not just a rental company. Her eyes narrowed. I looked around at the cousins, the church friends, Aunt Rotha, Brittany, Cody, my father, and finally Nana. Tideline is my company. No one moved. I let that settle. Then I said the words my mother could not outrun. And this is my house. The lawn went silent in a way I had never heard before. Not awkward, not confused. Silent like every person there had just realized they were standing inside someone else's secret. My mother stared at me. That is not funny. It is not a joke. You work construction. I own a restoration company, I said. I have owned it for years. Her mouth opened, then closed. You never asked, I continued. None of you ever asked what I did, unless you needed to know how much I could pay. Brittany shifted near Cody. Cody looked toward the driveway. I turned slightly so everyone could see the house behind me. I bought this cottage 3 years ago at county auction. It was half ruined. The porch was falling, the walls were rotten, and most people thought it was finished. But it was the house Nana and Grandpa lost when the bad years came, so I bought it back. Nana made a soft sound behind me. I kept going. I rebuilt it with my own hands. Every weekend, every late night, every board, every rail, every window. While this family thought I was just off somewhere making money to send back to Millhaven, my mother's face changed color. That is enough, she said. No, I answered. It was enough when Dad packed my shirts into a box. It was enough when you told me Brittany needed a house more than I did. It was enough when you forged my name onto a loan and called it family. Aunt Rotha gasped. The word moved through the crowd, forged. My mother snapped. Do not you dare do this here. I looked at her. You did it there, I said, in the living room, in front of people, with a cardboard box. My voice did not shake. So I am doing this here, in front of people, with the truth. For the first time in my life, my mother had an audience she could not control. My mother looked around the lawn, searching for the version of the room where she still had control. She did not find it. The cousins were staring. Aunt Rotha had one hand pressed to her chest. Brittany looked like she wanted to disappear behind Cody, but Cody was already stepping backward toward the parking area, suddenly very busy with his phone. My mother lifted her chin. You are humiliating me, she said. I almost laughed, not because it was funny. Because even then, standing in a house she had not built, in front of a family she had lied to, after forging my name onto a loan and packing me out of my own bedroom, she still thought the tragedy was how she looked. No, Mom, I said. You are finally being seen. Her face tightened. I did everything for this family. So did I said. The difference is, I did not steal anyone's name to do it. A sharp murmur moved through the guests. Aunt Rotha looked directly at my mother. Carol, what loan? My mother snapped toward her. This is none of your business. It became our business, Aunt Rotha said. When you started telling everyone, Jolene abandoned you. That landed. Because that was the story my mother had been selling all week. Jolene turned cold. Jolene stopped helping. Jolene forgot where she came from. Jolene was punishing her poor sister, but now the room had another version, the real one. My mother pointed at me, shaking. She is doing this for revenge. I looked at Nana sitting in her wheelchair, tears running quietly down her cheeks as she stared at the porch. No, I said. Revenge would have been letting you lose everything without saying why. This is not revenge. This is a receipt. Then I walked to Nana. The whole lawn went silent again. I crouched in front of her chair and opened the folder in my hands. For a second, all the anger around me faded. There was only her face, small and stunned, and the house behind us breathing in the ocean air like it had waited all these years for her to come home. Nana, I said, I did not bring you here just to visit. Her hands trembled. I placed the documents in her lap. This is a life estate. The house stays in my name, but you have the legal right to live here for the rest of your life. No rent, no conditions. Nobody can sell it out from under you. Nobody can push you out. Nobody can take your porch from you again. She looked down at the papers, then at me, then back at the porch. For a moment, she could not speak. I reached into the folder and pulled out the old folded paper from the coffee tin. I opened it carefully and held it where she could see her own handwriting. "Things I want before I go." I read softly. Her breath caught. I read the line at the top. "Watch one more sunset from the porch of a house that's mine." Nana covered her mouth with both hands. The sound she made was not just a sob. It was 50 years of grief finally finding a door. "My house," she whispered. "My own house." "It is yours now," I said. "Every sunset from here on." She reached for my face with one shaking hand. "You brought me home." Those 4 words nearly broke me. Not because they were sad, because they were enough. After 15 years of being treated like a wallet, a spare room, a safety net, a repair tool, and a daughter only when someone needed something, someone had finally named what I had done correctly. I had brought someone home. Behind me, my mother made a broken sound. "You cannot just give her that," she said. "We are family. That house should stay in the family." I stood slowly and turned. "It is in the family," I said. "It is with the only person who ever treated me like I belonged to it." My mother's mouth opened, but nothing came out, so Brittany tried. "This is unfair," she said, voice thin. "You planned all this just to embarrass us." I looked at my sister. For the first time, she looked less like the golden child and more like a grown woman standing in the wreckage of every rescue she had mistaken for love. "No, Brittany. I planned this for Nana. You embarrassed yourself when your first question after I lost a contract was who would pay your car." Her face flushed. "I did not know about the loan," she said quickly. "Maybe not," I said. "But you knew I was paying for your life. You just never asked what it cost me." That shut her mouth. Cody had reached the edge of the gravel now. Dell saw him and called out, "Leaving already?" Cody froze. Nobody laughed, but everyone understood. When the money stopped, so did his loyalty. My mother turned toward my father like she expected him to save her. He had done it my whole life. Not with words. With silence. By looking down. By letting her version become the only version in the room. "Wayne," she said, "say something." He stood beside Nana's chair, one hand resting on the back of it. For a long second, he looked like the same man I had always known. Tired. Torn. Ready to disappear inside himself. Then he looked at me, and something in him changed. "She is right," he said. My mother blinked. "What?" Dad swallowed hard. His voice was rough, but it did not break. "Jolene is right, about the box, about the money, about the way we let her carry everything." The lawn stayed quiet. He looked at me, shame heavy in his eyes. I should have stopped it. I should have stopped a lot of things. It was not enough. It could never reach backward and undo the years. But it was the first time my father had placed truth in front of peace. My mother stared at him like he had slapped her. "You are taking her side?" Dad looked at Nana, then at me, then back at my mother. "No," he said. "I am finally stopping taking yours." That sentence hit the lawn harder than anything I had said. My mother took one step back. For the first time in my life, she looked small, not powerless. Not innocent. Just small without everyone, holding up the version of her she preferred. Aunt Rotha moved in next, voice sharp and clear. "Carol, we need to talk about that loan." My mother's face went pale. The cousins started murmuring. Pieces clicked into place. The car. The bank letters. Cody's disappearing act. The sudden panic. The way my mother had been telling one story while the documents told another. The party did not explode. It dissolved. That was worse for my mother. Explosions give people something to perform against. Dissolving leaves them standing in what they made. People drifted toward the cake, because nobody knew what else to do. A few cousins avoided my mother's eyes. A few came to me quietly. "I had no idea," one whispered. "I am sorry," said another. Aunt Rotha squeezed my hand and said, "Your grandmother will remember this until her last day." That was the only review I cared about. Brittany sat on the porch steps for a while after Cody left without her. Yes. He actually drove away. 10 minutes later, she came back from the parking area with her sunglasses in her hand and her face stripped of attitude. For once, she looked like someone who had hit the ground. She stopped beside me. "I really did not know about the loan," she said. I looked at her. Maybe it was true, maybe it was not. But I was too tired to hold her entire life up while I figured it out. "For what it is worth," she added. "It is worth exactly what you do next," I said. She nodded once, small and ashamed, and walked away. My parents left before dark. Mom did not say goodbye to me. She walked to the car with Aunt Rotha beside her, already asking questions Mom could not cry her way out of. Dad paused before getting into the driver's seat. He looked back at the cottage, then at me. "I am sorry," he said. I believed him. I also knew sorry was not a bridge by itself. It was only the first board, so I nodded. That was all I had to give him that day. When the last car left, the property went quiet except for the ocean. Renata and Dell helped clear plates, then gave me and Nana the porch. I wheeled her to the edge where the view opened wide across the bay. The sun had begun to fall, gold spreading over the water. The same kind of sunset she had hidden in a wall and carried in her heart for half a century. She held the life estate documents in her lap with both hands. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "First sunset that is all mine." I bent beside her chair. "Took 80 years, she said. "It is yours now," I told her. "Everyone from here on." She reached over and found my hand. We watched the light move across the water until the sun lowered itself into the horizon, slow and glowing, like the world was finally keeping one promise. That night, after Nana fell asleep in the front room overlooking the water, I sat alone on the porch. For the first time in years, nobody needed a payment from me. Nobody needed a repair. Nobody needed me to swallow my hurt so dinner would not be uncomfortable. Nobody was calling me dramatic for noticing the knife. The house was quiet, not empty. Quiet. There is a difference. The fraud dispute took months. It was messy, slow, and full of letters. The bank investigated. My name was challenged, reviewed, questioned, and finally separated from the debt I had never signed for. What my mother and whoever helped her created, they had to answer for without my silence protecting them. Brittany lost the car. Cody disappeared completely not long after. Funny how a man with big plans can vanish when the wallet closes. Milehaven did not collapse overnight, but it stopped being my second job. That was enough. Titling recovered by fall. We landed 2 new contracts, then a third. The quarter I lost came back the way good things usually do in my life. Not magically, not easily, but board by board. Nana moved into the cottage. I drove up most weekends, the way I used to drive to Millhaven, but now the road did not feel like a chain. It felt like a road. It led to lemon cake, ocean air, and an old woman on a porch who lit up when she saw me. Dad came sometimes too. The first time, he arrived alone with a bag of groceries and no speech prepared. He sat with Nana and me on the porch, saying almost nothing for an hour. For my father, that was practically a confession. My mother and I did not speak for a long while. I did not block her. I did not scream. I did not announce some dramatic final goodbye. I just stopped holding the door open with my back. That is the part people do not understand about boundaries. They think it is always a slam, a fight, a cruel ending. Sometimes a boundary is quiet. Sometimes it is canceling an autopay. Sometimes it is filing the report. Sometimes it is letting people feel the weight of what they stacked on you. Sometimes it is buying back a porch and deciding the person who loved you best gets the key. People ask if I feel guilty. Here is the truth. I feel grief. I feel anger sometimes. I feel sadness for the version of me who thought usefulness would become love if she just worked hard enough. But guilt? No, because family is not a bill you owe forever. Family is a door. And I am done holding it open for people who only knock when they want something. The ones who knock because they love me, I let in. The rest can learn to carry their own roof. I spent 15 years being the wall. It turns out I make a much better porch. So if your kindness has ever been treated like a contract you never signed, listen to me. You are allowed to stop paying. You are allowed to stop explaining. You are allowed to take your name back from debts, rooms, roles, and people who never asked what it cost you. Setting a boundary is not betraying the people you love. It is finally deciding who gets a key. My family packed my life into a cardboard box because they thought I had nowhere better to go. They were wrong. I had a house by the water, a deed in my name, a grandmother who never forgot me, and a porch waiting for the truth. And when my mother tried to rent that porch for applause, she learned the lesson she should have learned years earlier. You can use a daughter for a long time, but one day she may stop being the wall, and when she does, everything built on her back finally has to stand on its own.